We all share our basic setup, our nervous system, our primitive brain, which has a negativity bias, the fact that we remember everything that's ever happened to us, and it becomes this storehouse of memories and evidence that we use to predict the future. It's good to know that, as it helps to make sense of what's happening in our nervous system. So what I wanted to do today was to talk about that a little bit and then get right into several practices that we can do if we are feeling kind of panicked, or if we're feeling like we just need to calm down a little bit. Oftentimes we have a stream of catastrophic thinking that's really got our attention, and then we'll distract ourselves with something, and then we'll come back and it'll be right there again. As we're getting started, one of the things we know is that the nervous system is a system that's largely in our body. It's related to the primitive brain and the early human development, so brain stem and primitive brain. It doesn't respond well to the conscious mind. So, for instance, we all know that telling someone to calm down never really helps. It never really calms anyone down. So our nervous system is in our body. Our nervous system, primitive brain, remember everything that's ever happened. So we have a lot of evidence that we're not going to necessarily be safe in a social situation because we've felt embarrassed or awkward before. Maybe we've had someone bully us, or we've had those experiences as a child. What we do know about safe, secure attachment growing up is that we need to have well-regulated adults, parents, in order for us to have a regulated nervous system and that kind of brain development that supports secure attachment. Of course, many of us didn't have that. So then what do we do? And until the late 90s, scientists thought that the brain just stopped developing at a certain age, and that there was no possibility of creating new brain cells. And we know that's not true anymore. So we have this capacity of the brain to generate new neural networks and new neural pathways. Dr. Rick Hansen has a quote: "The brain is Velcro for negative and Teflon for positive." And that really does seem to be the way the brain works. Our brain is always trying to keep us safe, and it's basing our neuroception, our perception of safety right now in this moment, on the past. And it's not a bad thing to do in the absence of something better. But really, our nervous system's experience, and since we were very, very young, is not our situation right now. So even though when we were in grade school or some time earlier in our life, we might have been really excluded, or maybe we had a situation in our homes where there was violence or threat or emotional neglect, now, as an adult, we can do some practices to heal our nervous system and to come into a state of connection with ourselves and then with other people. So when we're doing a relaxation practice, we start with the body because our body carries all of this tension. And usually we carry it in one of 5 places. So the forehead and eyebrows are one. Many people frown. We get really involved in worry and concern and catastrophic thinking. Now relax your forehead a little bit and bring your eyebrows up, and then let them soften. We can interrupt that pattern a little bit. Another pattern that we sometimes use for thoughts is we'll start to tap on our forehead, just a light tapping with 2 fingers, and take your attention away from the thoughts and into the sensation of the tapping and the sound of it on your forehead. That can be very helpful as well. And then notice your mouth and jaw. Many, many people clench their teeth. So if that's the case for you, move your lower jaw around a little bit. Release the tension in the hinges of your jaw. And then see if you could develop a habit of keeping a bit of space between your upper jaw and lower jaw so that you're not clenching your teeth. Then the neck and shoulders. So you could even bring your shoulders up around your ears. Take a deeper breath and let your shoulders relax away from your ears. And as you're breathing out, let your shoulders soften a bit. And notice the muscles of the upper back in between the shoulder blades. And as you breathe out, let all of those soften. Another place where we often hold tightness or heaviness is the chest. And sometimes this is emotional. We have a sensations or energy. Oftentimes there's a tightness in the muscles of the chest. So you could even tighten them if you want, and then let them release. And then coming down into the belly. It's very, very common for people to hold their breath. or to have a tight gut. Women especially are encouraged to walk around with their gut sucked in. For a moment, let's just focus on softening the belly as we breathe. And one of the things that we know about softening the belly as we breathe is it helps us to relax and soften and have a more continuous diaphragmatic breath. But just having a smoother breath signals our nervous system that we're safe. So what diaphragmatic breathing feels like in the body is as you breathe in, there's a rise or expansion in your stomach area. And as you breathe out, there's a softening of your belly. And if we're feeling quite tense or feeling like there's a lot of tightness or a lot of constriction in the belly area, particularly, sometimes it's a symptom of a freeze response. So, one of the ways that our nervous system works is we have the fight, flight, freeze. The first part of that is that we have a neuroception, a perception of threat. Again, it's based on the negativity bias in the brain, and it's based on the past. So we have this perception that there's something wrong, and then we start holding our breath, or our breath gets very shallow. If you think about a predator, you don't want to attract the attention of a predator. So when we go into freeze, our body gets very still, and we almost stop breathing. We hold our breath, and that can become quite a habit. So we're going to work with a breath practice now that helps us to overcome that. If you're feeling like you're starting to get panicky about something, or if you're just feeling like there's just too much going on, you can't really settle your nervous system, a practice like box breathing can help. So there's 4 sides to a box, and we're working with count of 4. We're going to inhale to 4, hold our breath to 4, exhale to 4, and then hold our breath to 4. So that's the basic pattern. So take in a deep breath. And then hold for 4, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath, 2, 3, 4. And then just let your breath return to whatever pattern it wants. And notice the difference in your nervous system right now. That was only a minute or so. Box breathing can be a very effective interrupter of what's going on. So whether we're caught in the grip of a train of thoughts or if we're feeling panicky, box breathing can be really helpful to just bring us right back into this moment. So notice what you feel like. It's a really good tool to have in our toolbox for whenever we might need it. Holding our breath isn't something that we want to have going on all of the time. When you're regular, just breathing on a normal basis, it's good to keep an eye on your breath and see, are you holding your breath at the end of the out breath? Or are you holding your breath at the end of the in breath? Ideally, when our body's relaxed and our mind is kind of settled, then what happens is that our breath gets very continuous and smooth and even, and it's very soothing so that we know that we're not in any danger. If we were in danger, we wouldn't be able to breathe that way. So it's a good communication with the nervous system. We need about a 6-second exhalation for the relaxation response to really kick into our body. So let's practice some longer out breath. And you can do this just by breathing out, or you can do it with the syllable vooo, which trauma expert Peter Levine often works with. So just take a deep breath in. Exhale, vooo. And as you're breathing out, relax your throat, your chest, your belly. Deep in breath. Exhale, vooo. Just let your breath continue. There's not a lot of breath going right at the end. That's okay. And then when you're ready, just breathe in deeply again. Exhale, vooo. You might notice that as you're getting more relaxed and you're softening your throat, that your breath the sound gets a little smoother. So that would be an indication that your breath is getting smoother. And let your breath just come back to normal. There's a number of ways that we can use the breath to signal to our body that we're safe right now. The other major way that we can use to signal our body that we're safe is through our eyes. Like I said before, the primitive brain doesn't really have a sense of time, but it also doesn't really listen to words. So having our conscious mind know that we're safe is great. And it's also very helpful to let our body directly take in that we're safe right now. So if you were to look around the room or whatever place that you're in, if you're in some place that's familiar and where your experience in that place is that your body's going to be safe, then it's reassuring to look around and look for the cues of safety in the room. And then you could also look to your side and back, do a bit of a twist, look behind you, look up and down. And then coming back, look to the other side. Let your eyes directly take in that your body is safe in the room right now. And there's a really simple practice of using the 5 senses to also know that our body's safe. And this is really effective if you're starting to panic or if you're getting really overwhelmed by traumatic memory or something like that, if you're really upset. So all you do is you look around the room and you name 5 things. You have to say it out loud if you can. So name 5 things that you can see. I see a painting. I see trees out the window. Name 5 things. And then 4 things that you can touch and touch them. I feel the warmth of my body. I hold my hands. Feel the coolness of my desk. 4 things that you can feel and touch them if you can. And then 3 sounds that you can hear. You hear the birds outside. You hear my dog moving. What are 3 things that you can hear? And then 2 things that you can smell or 2 of your favorite smells. I love the smell of the rain. And 1 favorite taste. Come back now and just notice again, what's your neuroception? What's your perception of safety and threat right now? And our neuroception is unconscious mind. It's not something that we figure out in our conscious mind. It's something that we feel. In our conscious mind, if you're in a location where you're safe, you know that you're safe, it's fine. But it's your perception in your senses, your unconscious perception. Notice how you feel. Notice what's going on with your breath as well. Notice if your body is more relaxed now. And then another really interesting way is just to touch our body. So one way we could do it is to hold our own hand. Notice what it feels like to just kind of squeeze, get the warmth of your hand, the sensation of holding your hand. And this is something you can do anytime. You could hold your own hand in a meeting, at a family dinner, whenever you feel like you need that extra support. You could do your hands on your heart. You could put your right hand under your armpit, near your heart, and your left hand over on your right shoulder or right arm. And just feel the warmth of your hand in your arm. Give yourself a hug. Take some deeper breaths. Soften your belly. And sometimes people just kind of pat their body. Just kind of pat or stroke your body. Notice that you're in your body. Notice that you can come back. You could also just notice your feet, or if your feet are on the floor, notice the sensation of that. Notice your seat, how you're sitting. So there are a lot of different ways to generate a feeling of safety in our body and to relax our body. There's lots of different relaxations we can do as well. But these are really direct nervous system practices where we're using our senses, sight and touch and hearing and things, and the breath to let our nervous system know that we're safe in this moment. A big part of that is the thoughts. The nervous system and the primitive brain generate a lot of the catastrophic thinking. We'll just do a couple minutes of that. But if you have just any kind of catastrophic or intrusive thoughts, coming back to the tapping, tap on your forehead, a couple fingers, notice the sound and the sensation. You could also put the thought in a frame. If it's an image, you could put it in a frame. And so notice there's the image, there's the frame. You can have your eyes closed, or you can have your eyes open and put it as though it's on the wall on the other side of the room. And so when we're looking at an image like that, we could notice that there's space on the outside of the frame. So an image doesn't take up the whole of our vision. It can, but then we take a step back and we put it in a frame, we put it over on the other side of the room. We might notice what's in our peripheral vision over there on the other side of the room. There might be other things on the wall. If it's words, we can look at the spaces between the letters, between the words. You could take your eyes around the empty space clockwise a few times. Start at the top and circle it a couple of times in one direction and then in the other direction. That can also help to break the trance of the words or the image. And just knowing that almost all of the thoughts that bother us are some kind of worry about the future or some kind of ruminating about the past. Just knowing that can be really helpful. And that we have tools that we can use, like tapping or putting the picture on a wall on the other side of the room, that can help to break the trance and let us come back into this awareness that right now, that memory that I'm thinking about or that worry of the future is actually not helping. It's actually not making me feel better, and that I do have some ways that I could work with those. A lot of people get very habituated to watching images of violence. Our nervous system evolved over millennia, and it's not a quick system to change. It's primitive. Our conscious level of the mind can take in new information. Our nervous system has trouble with changing quickly. So one of the things that our nervous system evolved for is to notice with our eyes what's dangerous. And so if we're watching television, especially if there's a lot of movement, a lot of different images, and especially if it's violence, then our nervous system is continually activated. In our nervous system, we think that the danger is real. And so we tighten up, we experience whatever is happening on the screen as real. And so if you're watching the news, all of those images of threat can feel really menacing. It's like that's an actual threat to me, even though it's happening thousands of miles away and your physical body is not in any danger. So it's a good idea to be really careful about what you watch. And if you were to read the news rather than watching videos, that would be more helpful. And then the other thing we can do is, as we're watching television, to notice what's happening in our nervous system. Do some deep breathing, do some relaxing. If a show is getting you all kind of wound up, then maybe think about not watching that, watch something else. People are binge watching Netflix and TV and different movies and things right now because of COVID. And our systems are elevated. And some of the nervous system social interaction that we find soothing isn't really available or hasn't been available to us. So watching a family drama or something where people feel included, we can also have that experience a little bit too. So we might not have it in real life, but we can kind of piggyback on a romantic comedy or something like that that makes us feel safer and included. So it can work in a positive direction too.